your sheets. On the back are the first 5 principles we've gone through. And if you don't have one, there's some. I know we put some new chairs up, so you probably didn't have one. We got some on the back tables as well. We've gone through 5 principles for sharing your faith. We're talking about how you share your faith without absolutely freaking out. But this morning, I want to start this whole thing by playing a game. Now, usually, like on Family Sunday, we play a game. This is a little bit different. I need someone to volunteer. And by the way, there is a Crumble gift card on the line. All right? As a reward. There's no win-lose in this game because there's only one person playing the game, okay? I need someone in the 20s to 40s range who will play a game with me without me telling you what it is. I got one, Peter, come on, let's go. I got one volunteer, you chickens. 2 volunteers. I got Peter back here. All right, sorry, you were a little bit late. Give Peter a round of applause. All right, Peter, I'm going to have you come stand right here. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what we're going to play. Here's the game we're going to play. Would you rather? Okay, now you need a microphone. There's your mic. All right, now how many of you have ever heard of the game Would You Rather? All right, now we're going to play a little modified version. Here's what would typically be a question for Would You Rather. Something like, would you rather go blind or go deaf?
Deaf.
Deaf. Oh, is your mic on? Yep, say it again.
Deaf.
He said deaf. How many agree? Blind or deaf? How many say blind? A few. How many say deaf? Okay, that is not one of the questions we're going to ask, all right? That was just a sample of how you would normally play. Are you ready for this? 5 questions. Crumble card is on the line, all right? First question. Would you rather have bad breath for the rest of your life or $1,000?
$1,000.
$1,000, okay? Here's number 2. Would you rather fight to the death or take an afternoon nap?
Who am I fighting to the death?
Do you know who Brock Lesnar is?
I'll take the nap, please.
Okay. Would you rather sneeze every 3 minutes for the rest of your life or never sneeze again?
I already do the first one, so we'll do the second.
Go with the second one, all right? Everyone tracking, by the way? Everyone agreeing so far? Anyone want to fight Brock Lesnar to the death? Okay. Chickens. All right. Would you rather lose a finger or go on a dream vacation?
I'll take the dream vacation, please.
All right. Here's your last question. And by the way, don't you all wish you'd come up and played this game? Would you rather eat soap or eat your favorite food?
I'll eat my favorite food,
And
please.
would that be a crumble cookie?
Yes.
All right, give him a round of applause. Thank you, Peter. All right, did you notice anything about those questions? Yeah, except for the sneezing one. You like sneezing? No, nobody likes sneezing. Everyone likes it when sneezing is done. All right, it's like going to the gym. The best moment of going to the gym is walking to the car when it's all said and done, right? What did all those questions have in common versus a normal would you rather scenario? Yeah, they're easy choices, right? Well, how did Peter make all those choices? And if you were playing along, how did you make the choice? What made the choice easy? What made it obvious?
One was good, one was bad.
For who?
For me.
For you, right? So what Peter did was chose the best option for him. He chose what was in his best interest, which is what would you rather typically does, right? Is it pits two bad things, bad for you things against one another, where these questions were in your bad interest or in your good interest. Would you rather lose a finger? Is that good for you or bad for you? Bad for you. Or go on a dream vacation. Good for you or bad for you? Good for you unless you're paying the bill, right? But let's pretend you're not. So it's very simple, and it ties into our 6th principle today. Principle number 6 is people are already interested in what's best for them. And the gospel is best for all people. Right? That's what this game demonstrated. We want what is best for us, not what is worst for us. Can we all agree on that? People in general want the very best for themselves. Here's the good news as we begin to share the gospel. The gospel is best for everybody. Every single person on the planet. Now, we're gonna read this passage again. Philippians 2:4. It says, "Don't look out only for your own interests, but also the interests of others." So when you're at the Philly, Kansas City Super Bowl party today, don't just look out for your team and their interests. Look out for the interests of the other team. Yeah. It's hard to do that when we're talking about sports, isn't it? We were talking, I don't remember where we were talking this morning about, someone said, I'm just go sports. Lydia, I think you were saying you're just go sports. You're all about just the halftime. She's Team Rihanna, right? How many of you are Team Rihanna this morning? How many of you are Team commercials? Right. How many of you are Team football? All right, Team Phillies? Yeah. Team Kansas City? Yeah. Team I don't care? There we go. There's my people, right? Yeah. What's that? Team food. Oh yeah, I forgot team food. Where's team food? Yeah, there we go. Yeah. You know what my biggest problem with the Super Bowl is? I never know when to pee. Because usually it's during the commercials, but then you're going to miss a good commercial, right? So you can't go at halftime because Rihanna's going at halftime. So I don't know what to do. We'll figure it out, right? What's that? Depends? We're going to move right along. Here's the point, right? People want what's best for them, and our goal in sharing the gospel is to share with them the very best thing for them, right? If you had to choose, sometimes this is difficult, right? Because sometimes what's best for someone else means we don't get something good for us. Like, what if you had to make a choice between you get $1 million tax-free or a friend of yours gets $2 million tax-free? See, of course you're going to say friend out in the open on a Sunday morning when you don't really have to make the choice. But that would be a difficult decision, right? I mean, here's what you really do, is you find your most generous friend, right? And say, let's split this and we both win, right? But what if you can't do that? What if it's got to be anonymous and you don't get to have any of the money? Right? See, we want to play games with this. And that's why, as we get down to this sharing the gospel, that's where the struggle really comes. Because sharing the gospel, we know, would we all agree that we know it's good for somebody else? Yes. Is the gospel good for the people in your life? Yes. Is it good for your family members? Is it good for your coworkers? Is it good for the grocery checkout person? Is it good for people you are walking into and are around every single day? Is it the very best thing for them? Then why don't we share it? Right? And part of... Can I just share with you a little bit my pastor's heart in this whole series? And one of the things I'm praying about and trying to work through is we can give you all the information, right? All these principles. We're at 6 principles. We're going to end up with 8 principles for sharing the gospel without freaking out. I can give you all that information, and it can change absolutely nothing. Right? We just had our 3rd Sunday here, and I just did a baptism class last Sunday. You know how many people were there? 0. I know, it makes me sad. And I'm not trying to, I'm not casting stones. Remember Jesus telling all the Pharisees, you who are without sin, cast the first stone. And what did they all do? Drop their stones. I'm not casting stones because I'm in the same boat. And so I want to share the information with you and give you some tools. But the real question is, what is going to begin to change our heart? What is going to begin to change who we are and how we feel about sharing the gospel to the people around us. Because if we're all really honest, right, you look at the title of this book, Sharing Jesus Without Freaking Out. Sharing Jesus freaks us out. We're not sure. Oh, see, you just throw the book. That's how much it freaks you out, right? But the truth is, and this is a quote out of the book, sharing Jesus with others is meant to bring joy to our lives and glory to God. And when we share Him with that kind of heart, expecting others to be as captivated by the gospel as we are, our joy will be contagious. People will see that what is good news for us is also good news for them, and that a relationship with Jesus is the very thing that they've been searching for their entire lives. But that is not how we approach this conversation. How do we typically approach a conversation? Just in our minds. And I know what happens here between our ears, right? How many of you have had an argument with somebody 5 or 6 times and never said a word to them? How many of you have ever then had that conversation with the person? Did it ever go the way it went in your mind? No. Typically it goes better than it went in your head. Because we assume the absolute worst. And the same about sharing Jesus. What do we expect in our heads, in our hearts, when we go to share Jesus Christ with somebody? Rejection. So, ridicule. So, here's my challenge is for us to begin to rethink how we share the gospel. Now, and we could use a little football term, but let's not do that. Let's talk about someone in the room, share with me your favorite place to eat on the planet. What? Oh, I heard the one. Chick-fil-A. Okay, so Chick-fil-A. Why? Why is Chick-fil-A so good? And boy, Chick-fil-A is good. Right? There's waffle fries? Incorrect. We're going to fight. Waffle fries are garbage. Garbage. I don't care. Okay, maybe I'll back off a little bit. McDonald's fries are way better. Here's what Chick-fil-A needs to do is get rid of waffle fries and just make tater tots full time. Because they're way better. Their tater tots are way better. All right? So the waffle fry controversy aside, what makes Chick-fil-A so good? Grammy, what makes it so good? Fresh chicken. The service. I heard something over here. The nuggets. What makes the nuggets so good, Austin? What's that? They just are. You know, that's the best explanation I may have ever heard. I swear they're putting drugs in the batter. You can't eat one chicken nugget. You got to eat 50 chicken nuggets. They're so good, right? How many of you love Chick-fil-A? Right. Now, see, like we get this waffle fry thing, right? And I'm like, waffle fries are garbage. And what happened in the room? You all turned on me, right? That's what we feel is going to happen when we share Jesus. When we say Jesus is the greatest thing ever, we feel like the whole room is going to turn on us. But what if I had simply said Chick-fil-A is the absolute best chicken in the world, and I sometimes wish they were open on Sundays without people having to work. Let's invent robots that will still give us Chick-fil-A on Sunday so no one has to work, and we still get the deliciousness. Wouldn't that be awesome? I'm going to run for president on that platform alone. Do you see how you all embraced me there? And came around and said, we're on board. Why? Because you also believe that Chick-fil-A is good for you. No. Well, okay, it's good. Hey, it's Jesus nuggets, so there's no calories. Right, it's the Lord's chicken, absolutely, right? All right, so what I want to do is deal with some of the reasons that we feel, not only that we feel that people will reject the gospel, but some valid reasons why some people reject the gospel, and how do we deal with it? Because as you do share the gospel, are people going to come back at you? Is it going to be 100% where they'll be like, yep, I'm on board? No. Are they going to come back? Now, are they going to say, you know what, you are the devil incarnate and leave me alone? It's possible, but is it likely? Nah, because you know what other people are also afraid of? That you'll judge them, right? We're afraid of what they're going to think about us. They're afraid of what we're going to think about them. The good news is all we're trying to do is share with them the best news in the world. And we need to do that with a sense of enthusiasm and expectation and anticipation, but they are going to come back at us a little bit. So, and by the way, our goal, and I hope you get this, if you get nothing else out of this whole series, here's your goal. Here's the thing I want you to get. Our goal in sharing the gospel is not to convert someone every single time. What? I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right? But if can you share the gospel and have the person walk away without having shared the gospel and it still be a win? Yes. Because what might you be doing? Planting a seed or watering the seed, right? So on your sheet, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, is a timeline. And here's what I want you to think about as we look at this timeline that's on the board right now, the timeline that's on the screen. There it is. Gotcha. All right. What we want is, and you think about someone in your life who doesn't know Jesus, and I want you to put them somewhere on that spectrum, okay? Now, they may have absolutely no knowledge of Jesus at all. And you think, is that even possible? And the answer is, you bet it is. Absolutely. We are in a post-Christian culture today. More and more people have no faith background. They don't know anything about God. They don't know anything about Jesus. They don't know anything about the Bible. They have no knowledge. And more of the people in your life are going to fit into that category. Some of them will have some. Some will have the right knowledge. Now, where are we trying to get them? To the saving knowledge, right? That's where we want to get them. And then once you have saving knowledge, you have growing knowledge, you're constantly growing. So you can put someone you know somewhere on that spectrum. Your goal is to get them to the next step. To give them a little bit more, a little more information to make. Now, can someone go from no knowledge to saving knowledge? Absolutely. Is that in your hands? No. Whose hands is that in? That's God's. That's in God's hands. Your responsibility is not to convince people to become Christians, but simply to make sure you've given them enough to make an informed decision. And the decision is theirs. And God will use you in that process to bring them to Himself. We just need to bring them one step closer. By the way, in case you didn't know, this is biblical. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Paul is talking to the Corinthians, and he's getting on their case a little bit because they're jealous and they're quarreling with one another. And what they're really arguing about, and I'm glad, no church ever does this in America, they're arguing about who they follow. And some are saying, no, we follow Paul. And others in the church are saying, no, we follow Apollos. And Paul says in verse 5, after all, who is our, back up, verse 4. When one of you says, I'm a follower of Paul, and another says, I follow Apollos, aren't you acting just like the people of the world? That I follow this crowd, or I follow this belief? After all, who is Apollos? Who is Paul? We are only God's servants through whom you believe the good news. Each of us did the work that the Lord gave us. I planted the seeds in your heart, and Apollo watered it, but it was God who made it grow. It's not important who does the planting or who does the watering. What is important is that God makes the seed grow. The one who plants and the one who waters work together with the same purpose. We're in this thing together on God's team, and He is the one who makes it grow. Who helps people move up, that's not up there anymore, move up the stage, up one step closer, right? So we don't have to worry about, well, what if they don't answer? What if they hate me? What if they hate you? Yeah, they're lost. And maybe you did plant a seed. You know what I have found is the more cantankerous and the more boisterous and the more outgoing someone is about something I'm telling them about the gospel or about Jesus, the more something underneath is working in their hearts. What scares me is when I share the gospel with someone and they just don't care. Because that means they just don't have anything going on inside. It's like watching Old Yeller and not crying. Where's your soul, man? Something's got to right have it. So if someone's really angry, I'd rather that than them just be indifferent to the gospel. They're angry. There's something underneath that, and God is at work. You know, one of the things I work with, or I speak at Fight Club every once in a while, which is a men's organization here locally. And they've got a thing on their wall, and I absolutely believe this. And we've got to get this in our heads as Christians. It says, do not fix what God is breaking, and do not break what God is fixing. And we don't know often what the case is. You may come up around someone, and God is trying to break them down. And you're supposed to give the one more piece that's going to break them down to the point where God is ready to build them back up. Or maybe God is building them up and you're going to add one more piece to help them make that next step. But we don't know that. So our job is not to judge people. Our job is not to condemn them. Our job is to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. Of course, that's easy to say. It's not always easy. Because there are barriers that people will throw up to you sharing the gospel. And I want to share with you 4 of those barriers, why they tend to come up, and how you can respond to them. Are you ready? We're going to go through these pretty quickly. Number 1, you may be faced with hostility. They may be angry. And usually this is a result of personal hurt or a cultural bias against Christians. I don't know if you know this, but people in the church hurt people. The church hurts people. It has from the beginning of time because we're human and we're broken. So how do you deal with it when someone comes, you know what, the church, I think it was Gandhi. I don't know if Gandhi actually said it, but he's actually reported to have said it. Said, I like Jesus, I just don't like his disciples very much. And I think a lot of people in the world feel that same way. I went to a church and they did this to me, or they said this to me, or I was going through this crisis in my life and the church judged me and they actually threw me out. And it happens. It breaks my heart, but it happens. So someone may be a little hostile and say, the church never did anything good for me. In fact, all it's done is hurt me. How do we respond to that kind of hostility? You listen and you be real and honest. Most of us can say, you know, first of all, you just listen and go, man, that's sad. And that hurts me, breaks my heart. I'm sorry that happened to you. And I've been hurt by people as well. I've been hurt by people. Anyone ever been hurt by a family member? Yeah. You just toss the family member aside? We want to, right? So you know what? I know that you've been hurt by other people, and I know that the church is broken, and there's this bias in the world against the church, and I understand that. But I'm not here to defend the church. I'm here to share with you Jesus Christ.
Right.
And Jesus has not hurt you. Jesus died for you.
Right.
Right? But you listen, and you be honest and real. Don't say, oh no, church is perfect. And whatever you do, do not say this. Not my church. Not Pinecrest. Please don't say that. Plenty of people have been hurt from this place. I've hurt people. Not generally intentionally, but it happens. Right? So we're just going to be honest about it. And then bring the conversation back to what really matters. Yes, the church is broken, and I do not know why God uses the church as his chosen instrument for changing the world, but he does. And the church is not a bunch of perfect people. It is a hospital for people who need the gospel of Jesus Christ. Change that conversation. Number 2 thing that you may hear is suffering. And I'm not talking about the person suffering, but what you'll very often hear is, I don't know if I can worship a God or believe in a God or follow a God who allows pain and suffering in the world. You ever heard that one? The problem with that is it assumes that all the pain and suffering in the world is God's fault. When the truth is, all the pain and suffering in the world is our fault. It's our fault. It's the result of sin. And my brokenness, and your brokenness, and the world's brokenness, and Putin's brokenness, and Biden's brokenness, and Trump's brokenness. We're all broken. And what God is trying to do is redeem his broken creation. The one thing you can generally get all people you talk to agree on is the fact that things are broken. And God is trying to fix it, but we don't get to decide how that happens. God does. And God sent his Son into the world to redeem it. So let's bring the conversation back to that. And by the way, the other thing you can talk about is the fact that God joined in our suffering. He sent his Son to go through the very things that we're going through, to die and then overcome sin and death once and for all. See, the fact that someone is saying, I don't like the brokenness and the suffering in the world, we can identify with that. God identifies with that. God doesn't like the brokenness and suffering in the world. Number 3, could be just outright refusal. They just don't believe the gospel and they refuse to embrace it. What do we do in that case? Now you throw a Bible at them. Right? No, you respect their decision. You respect their decision and embrace that friendship. Continue to be friends with them. They may say, you know what, I don't want anything to do with your God or your church or the things that you believe in. And you say, you know what, I understand that is absolutely your right, but I'm still going to love you and pray for you, and I'm here if anything should come up. It's that last sentence you got to be sure that you say. Because guess what happens when something terrible happens in their life? They come to you. Pastor, how do you know that? Because it's happened to me. Before I was a pastor, I was in the corporate world. And I would tell people all the time, I go to church, I believe in God. You know, I don't know if I went as far as to share the gospel. There were a few people I did, right? I wasn't openly obnoxious about it, but people knew what I stood for. And when someone died in their family or they were going through a marriage crisis, they would come and share that with me because I had a foundation and a bedrock that they needed. Be ready for that moment to share the good news that you have in your life. But don't be judgmental. Because if you're judgmental and say, well, you know what? You disregard Jesus, you're going to hell. Have fun. It's hot. Hope you got ice. Right? What does that do? Just creates a divide, right? Number 4, they may respond with apathy. And honestly, this is probably most people in our world today, again, because we're in a post-Christian society. So what do you do here? And here's the thing with apathy is, in most people's case, faith just does not factor into their lives at all. It just isn't a thing. They don't think about it. They don't worry about it. It's not good news. It's not bad news. It's just nothing. In fact, they may look at you and go, why do you spend over an hour every Sunday listening to some moron talk about stuff? Why? First of all, that's a valid question. You should probably evaluate your life choices. What do we do in that case? We focus on the relationship and be patient. Stay connected to that person and be patient. Because God will bring something up in their life and an opportunity for you to share the gospel. You have no idea what that is. Here in a couple of weeks. Where is Bob still here? Or did Bob get called out? Oh, I think he got called out. He's on call, right? So, Bob Brown, a guy who plays the ukulele up here sometimes. Mandolin, yeah. What's the difference? Really? It's a big difference. He plays the mandolin. Don't tell Bob I said that, okay? So the reason Bob's not here is he flies. He used to fly for United. He's semi-retired. He now flies. He does trips for hospitals and doctors who are going to pick up organ donations or they need to get somewhere. So he's on call all the time. So he was here this morning. Looks like he got called out to go on a flight. But I sat down with lunch with him a couple weeks ago talking about this, and this has really sparked something inside of him, and I'm going to have him come share, God willing, in 2 weeks, some of the conversations that he's had and how those things have happened. Because once you open yourself up and you have this heart and this attitude to say, you know what, I don't care whether you're hostile, I don't care whether you are questioning things, I don't care whether you absolutely refuse it or you're apathetic to it, I'm praying for you, and I know that the gospel is the very best thing for you, and I'm not going to quit until I'm done on this planet, because I know that what we have, what Jesus is offering, is what you need. And by the way, once you share the gospel once and someone accepts it, you will get hooked. Because watching God change somebody's life is addictive. But you got to get over that hump. You got to get over that fear. You got to get over what are people going to say, right? I'm going to share with you one more passage and then you're going to be dismissed. 1 Peter chapter 3, starting in verse 15. Now, I will tell you, Jake is going to use this very same passage next week. So next week when he reads it, act surprised, okay? You must worship Christ as Lord of your life. And if someone asks you about your Christian hope, always be ready to explain it. All right? Right off the bat, what does that say? Be ready. If someone asks about your hope as a believer, first of all, the question should be, is there anything for people to question? Right? It's the age-old thing. If you were put on trial for being a Christ follower, would you be found guilty or innocent? But do this in a gentle and respectful way. Did you read that? Be ready to share the hope that you have, but Scripture says there are two things that should identify and characterize how you're sharing the gospel. What are those two things? Gentleness and respect. Which, by the way, is why many Christians have gotten a black eye, why Christianity as a whole has gotten a black eye. Because we're not gentle and we're not respectful sometimes. We tend to be loud and obnoxious. We're typical Americans. Stacy, I'm going to tell a story on you. Where's Stacy? Yes, I am. Can I tell the story?
Of course.
Okay. We were in Germany, one of our mission trips, and we're on a bus, and there's all these Germans, and there's several Americans, and there was one American, and everyone knew there was one American because she was loud and she was obnoxious. And one of our Melissa, was crouching behind everything and saying, I don't know that person. Because we tend to, I don't know if you know this, but the world looks at us as loud, obnoxious, and I think it's awesome. Other people don't think so. And the question is, are you coming off as now? I know her heart. She wasn't trying to be that way, right? We need to be gentle and respectful. So that when people see us and they hear us, we are representing Jesus Christ. Are you representing him well? Here's the bottom line. God has called you to be his witness. The gospel is his message, and it's great news for everyone. So why wouldn't you share it? Tell them, look, here, just start this way. Hey, do you like Chick-fil-A? Jesus does too. Just start that way. That'll open up a conversation, right? It's Jesus nuggets anyway. By the way, how many sandwich people, Chick-fil-A sandwich people we got in the room? Okay, you can be wrong. How many chicken nugget people we got? That's right. How many are like, forget it, just do both? Ah, there we go. Let's stand and pray. Father, we thank you for this good day that you've given us. and for this message that you've given us that has changed and transformed our lives, that has shown us our brokenness and has done something about that. Father, our world is broken, the people around us are broken, but it is the gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news of Jesus Christ that's going to make a difference. And I pray, Father, that you begin to change our hearts, our attitudes around the gospel, around sharing the gospel, that you'll bring people into our lives and opportunities into our lives to share the gospel, and that we'll put aside our fears, our worries, our doubts, and that you'll begin to change and transform our hearts to have a heart of expectation, almost a heart and an attitude of desperation, that people need this good news. And without it, they're lost. And without it, they don't have hope. Father, change our heart from the inside out to share this message, to see people the way you see them, and to share with them the good news, not to sell them something, but to share something with them that we know is absolutely best for them. Father, thank you for this church, for their openness, their willingness to hear and listen and be shaped and transformed by the Word of God. And all God's people said, Amen. God bless you. You are dismissed. Would you please stack chairs in groups of 7, which is a perfect number, and get some Chick-fil-A tomorrow. God bless you.